What would you do if someone you love told you they wanted to end their life? This man wants to cease to exist. He's young, handsome, and a millionaire, but he feels miserable because his accident left him in a wheelchair. Now he's unhappy and sees no hope for the future. But this woman will try to change his mind so he regains the will to live. This is not an entirely happy story, but it will definitely make you question what love is. William's life was seemingly perfect. He was a handsome man, deeply in love with his girlfriend, and with a bright future ahead of him. But let's remember that in this world, no one's life is guaranteed. One day, he left for work, not without first saying goodbye to his partner. However, he carelessly crossed the street and was hit by a motorcycle. This left him quadriplegic, with almost no mobility from the neck down. 2 years after this event, he met Louisa, who would become the ray of hope in his life. Will would teach the young woman a valuable lesson, but in a very painful way. Unlike Will, Louisa did not come from a wealthy family. In fact, they urgently need money, as her father, a maintenance manager, had lost his job. She makes one last attempt to find a job, and succeeds. The advisor tells her that the job involves caring for a man with a disability. This man is obviously Will, but Louisa has no idea. It's a little far from her home, but apparently the pay is very good, so she takes the job, a decision she will regret with all her might. For her first day of work, Louisa puts aside her usual colorful clothes and instead opts for something a little more formal, which she hates. She takes the bus, travels to the house, and rings the doorbell. She realizes that it's not a simple house, but a large mansion, which intimidates her a bit. The boy's mother interviews her, but Louisa does a terrible job. She also notices that she's inexperienced. However, she realizes something very important. Louisa is a very cheerful woman. This girl always has a smile on her face and always tries to remain optimistic, even though her life is a little complicated. This is because she never keeps a job. Her family's running out of money. She has no goals in life, and her boyfriend, Patrick, is a conceited jerk who only thinks about himself. His only concern is his workouts, and he never cares about his girlfriend's feelings. Her optimism ends up convincing the lady, and she gives her the job. Louisa is surprised and now meets Will for the first time, with whom she will end up falling deeply in love. But he will also end up breaking her heart. Will is a little rude. He's not at all friendly to the girl, which makes her very nervous. The nurse shows her where things are and shows her the huge amount of pills the man needs to make his life and condition a little more bearable. Louisa tries to make her first approach to Will, but he turns out to be a complete jerk. He speaks ironically, makes offensive jokes, and seems irritated all the time. His words hurt Louisa so much that they even make her cry. Louisa doesn't know it yet, but Will's mother hired her for a very dark reason that the girl will soon discover. Just a quick pause to say that if you're enjoying this video and haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot and really helps me keep making more videos and content like this. Alright, let's get back to the story. Louisa keeps trying day after day, arriving early, helping where she can, and always giving him a smile. However, her efforts are in vain. The girl has done nothing wrong to Will, but he treats her as if he hates her. This behavior can be very common in people who find themselves in similar health situations. Before, Will was an athletic, adventurous man in control of his life. He was even in the newspaper. But after the accident, he lost all control and autonomy. Will is rude to everyone around him because he may be shifting all his anger from the original source to a more accessible one. That is, his caregivers are a constant reminder of his situation. Furthermore, treating them badly may be a way to regain some control and power in a situation where he feels helpless. Things get worse when he has 2 visitors on a bad day. The boy's mother tells Louisa that she'd better leave because things could get ugly. These 2 visitors are Will's ex-girlfriend and his best friend. They both came to tell him that they're getting married. Worst of all, their visit was to invite him to the wedding. Obviously, Will doesn't take this well and is rude, so his friend and ex leave the house. But before leaving, Will's ex tells Louisa that after the accident, she tried to take care of him for months, but he was just too rude and ended up actually pushing her out of his life entirely. Another example of anger and frustration directed at those who tried to help him. After this, Will breaks down and starts tearing up all the photos from his past. The images constantly remind him of a life that used to be better. Louisa doesn't understand. She thinks he'll eventually get better and go back to a normal life, but she's very wrong. Louisa tells her boyfriend Patrick how terrible her job is, but he doesn't seem to care much about what she has to say. Then he interrupts her to tell her that they're going on vacation to Norway. Louisa doesn't look very happy because this wasn't what she wanted. She asks him why Norway. Patrick replies that it's only because there's going to be a very important race that he wants to participate in. He didn't care about his partner's opinion and only looked out for his own interests. The tensions between Will and Louisa explode one day when the girl tries to fix the broken pictures. Will walks by and practically insults her, which makes Louisa explode and tell him to stop being a jerk. Will tells her to leave, but Louisa tells him that her mother was the one who hired her and she's not leaving because she needs the money. For the first time in a long time, someone didn't treat Will with pity. The girl's sincerity and genuine expression of her emotions shocked him because he didn't expect such a direct and sincere reaction. Louisa had just confronted him with the reality of his behavior. Metaphorically, she slapped him in the face. And although Will maintains a facade of hostility, he probably longs for a true emotional connection. So perhaps seeing Louisa's sincerity and courage made Will feel that she could be someone with whom he could establish a genuine bond. That same night, Will invites the girl to see a movie in an act of reconciliation. Louisa ends up loving the movie, which leads them to talk a little more. This act is not only an attempt at an apology, but also a way to reconnect, as they now have a new level of mutual respect. The two grow closer. The girl tells him about her boyfriend and her basic hobbies. These conversations make Will laugh and put him in a better mood, a fact that the nurse notices, as does the boy's mother. This gives the mother a ray of hope, as she thinks her plan is working. One day, everyone accompanies Will to a medical checkup. Louisa asks the nurse how Will's recovery is going, to which he replies that he will never recover and will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. This surprises Louisa, as she thought Will was getting better, but she gradually realizes that things are much worse than she thought. One bad day, Will becomes very ill. The girl tries to help him, but things get complicated, so she calls the nurse, who arrives and stabilizes him. In addition to his motor problems, Will has a very weak immune system, and it's easy for small things to become complicated for him. After this scare, Louisa stays with him all night to take care of him. However, she starts snooping around on his computer and finds a video that will help her understand Will better. It's a video that the boy's friends made for his birthday. She realizes that Will used to be a very active and independent person. The man wakes up and they start talking. Louisa tells him that when she was a child, she was given some yellow and black socks, but they didn't fit her, and this broke her heart. She never found them again because they don't make them for adults. This story is very important, and in a moment you'll see why. Things between the two are improving. However, the girl will realize something that will change everything completely. They continue to get to know each other better and create an increasingly strong bond. Will tells Louisa that she should travel and see the world, since you only live once. The man is encouraging her to grow up and live life. After this, Louisa shaves his face, and they laugh, creating an intimate moment. Intimacy is not just about taking off your clothes. It's a deep level of closeness and emotional connection that goes far beyond the physical. But this is when everything takes an unexpected turn. Louisa overhears Will's parents arguing about a letter that arrived from Switzerland. Will has been looking into the possibility of assisted death. In other words, the boy wants to end his own life. He's already tried it on his own before, but this time he asked his parents to accompany him to a specialized place to do it in a more humane way. His father wants to respect his decision, but his mother asked him for 6 months to try to change his mind. That's why his mother has hired Louisa to try and make him see that there are still reasons to stay here. Louisa is in shock. She's already formed a deep emotional bond with Will, so this news makes her not want to go back to work for fear of getting hurt. She talks it over with her sister and comes to the conclusion that maybe, just maybe, she can change his mind. She gets to work researching things to do day and night. She prepares a whole itinerary of activities that Will might like, and once she has the plan ready, she proposes it to the boy's parents, who, hoping to prevent his terrible fate, accept. According to his parents, Will has not left the house in almost 2 years, so they think this could help him a lot. They go to horse races and the opera, where they have a wonderful time together. Louisa learns many things from Will, and they help each other grow personally. She makes him more patient and outgoing, and he teaches her things about the world that she knew nothing about. While they're having a picnic, Louisa tells him that she wants to invite him to her birthday dinner to meet her boyfriend and her family, which Will accepts. When Will arrives, Louisa's parents extend their hand to him, but Will finds it a little difficult to greet them back. Afterwards, everyone sits down, and while they're talking, the doorbell rings. Louisa opens the door, and it's none other than her boyfriend, who obviously arrived late because he was working out, and worse, didn't wish her a happy birthday. Will behaves like a gentleman in front of Louisa's family, while Patrick is the complete opposite. He doesn't talk about anything interesting and seems to mock Will's condition, but Will handles the situation very well. However, Louisa is about to realize that her boyfriend is not someone worthwhile. She blows out the candles and opens her gifts. Her parents tell her that they're proud of all the financial help she's given them. Her parents give her a humble photo album as a gift, which she loves. It's her boyfriend's turn, and he gives her a necklace that he made himself, which I'd rather not comment on. Louisa gives him a fake smile, and now it's Will's turn. The girl opens her gift and screams with excitement. Will has just given her the yellow and black stocking she wanted so much. Will could have given her a ring, jewelry, or expensive clothes. However, he did something more important than Patrick had ever done. Will listened to her. He paid attention to the things that mattered to her and gave her something simple but very meaningful. We see the girl's boyfriend dying of jealousy over what just happened. After this, Will continued to show her more of his life and tell her about his past. He took her to a very nice place to tell her that he decided to go to his ex-girlfriend's wedding and wanted Louisa to accompany him. On top of everything else, Will's father gave Louisa's father a job as head of maintenance at one of his businesses. Will tells Louisa that he asked his father because he really needed the help of a supervisor, but also so that Louisa could start thinking more for herself and not for other people. This man is slowly changing the girl's mind and world in a very positive way. The wedding day arrives, and both Louisa and Will have a great time. She says she doesn't look that pretty. Will shushes her and tells her never to say that again. They talk all night and spend time together until finally it's time for the dance. Will obviously can't dance, but Louisa sits on his lap and tells him to go to the dance floor. This is how these two have a very fun and romantic moment where they show us that, in addition to being his caregiver, Louisa is becoming something more. Will tells her, "You're almost the only reason I get up in the morning." Apparently, Louisa's plan to restore his will to live is working. However, moments of happiness are just that. Moments. The day after the event, he falls seriously ill with pneumonia and is hospitalized. All this while Louisa and her boyfriend argue, as she canceled their plans to go on their supposed vacation to Norway because she wants to be with Will. Patrick gets angry because he thinks Louisa doesn't support him, but the reality is that the girl has always been there for him, and he's so used to this that the first time it's not like that. Patrick resents it greatly. Louisa finds out about Will's condition and rushes to the hospital to see him, spending the whole night there. Back at home, the girl and the nurse have a very revealing conversation. The nurse tells her that Will hides his feelings when he's with her, but that when she leaves, he screams in pain. Will suffers both physically and mentally, and there seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel. That is why he wants to end his suffering. Many may think this is selfish, since doing so will hurt everyone who loves him, but the truth is that people who consider this kind of thing only want to stop suffering. So I think it's complicated to judge. Louisa tells him she won't let this happen, so she plans a trip to keep Will motivated to live. When Louisa arrives home, she finds a surprise. Her boyfriend has made her dinner to apologize for the fight, but he only talks about races and calories. He's very indignant, as it seems more like a honeymoon than a business trip. This makes him very jealous and doubtful of his girlfriend. He reproaches her for the fact they've been together for 7 years, and she only met Will 5 months ago. However, those months were enough for Louisa to discover that there are people willing to listen to her, understand her, love her, and make her feel special. It's not about the amount of time, but the quality of it. So Louisa simply lets Patrick go. She didn't even try to look for him, because Louisa had redefined her concept of love through contrast. The way we experience and understand love can be influenced by our past experiences, but it can also evolve and change as we expose ourselves to different ways of loving and being loved. Through her relationship with Will, Louisa was able to compare and reevaluate what she really wants in a relationship. The contrast between her old relationship and her new one with Will allowed her to identify what is healthy and truly loving. It seems to me, therefore, that it's important to realize that even if we've had less than pleasant romantic experiences, it's always important to broaden our horizons and not be afraid to experience new connections that may cause us to redefine what we always believed love to be. Everyone has an incredible time on the trip, including the nurse, who's also accompanying them. When night falls, Louisa gets Will ready for bed, and he asks her not to leave. Louisa returns, and for the first time, their lips meet. The next morning, they go diving. Louisa is scared to death, but Will calms her down by saying, "You can do anything." Will has always tried to make her feel secure and confident, just like when he told her she looked beautiful at the wedding, or when he told her to take off her scarf when they went to the opera. We can see true happiness on Will's face, a face totally different from the one he had before he met Louisa. This girl has given him a reason to go on. However, Louisa is about to discover that all her efforts have been in vain. That evening, as they dance and laugh, Louisa leans in to kiss Will, but he pulls away and tells her the truth. Louisa tells him she already knows everything about the assisted death. Will replies that he's grateful for everything they've experienced over the last 6 months, but his decision remains the same. When they return from this vacation, he will go to Switzerland to end it all. Louisa is stunned. She had seen him cry, laugh, and even dance. She thought she'd made him change his mind, but she was very wrong. Will tells her that being with her has been the most wonderful thing anyone could have done for him, but that he needs to end it here. Louisa feels unimaginable pain. She knows the person she loves will die, and she can't stop it. She begs him not to do it, but he's already made his decision. Will tells her that if she truly loves him, she should travel with him to Switzerland to accompany him in his last breath. Louisa gets up and, barely able to speak, tells him that he doesn't realize how selfish his request is. This situation is somewhat paradoxical, as it can be interpreted as Will being selfish, which is partly true. He wants to leave this world, leaving a trail of pain in all those who love him. While in this situation, as in many others, it's difficult to judge the act of ending your existence as selfish. The fact that Will was clear about what he was going to do, and yet, even seeing that Louisa was falling in love with him, was not clear about his intentions, seeming to make it a selfish act. And I think this is important to highlight in a romantic relationship. It's very important to be clear about our intentions and expectations. And although these may change over time, this doesn't mean that we can't continually update them. However, it seems to me that Louisa and the people who are against Will's decision, who themselves feel that he is dead in life and has no chance of improvement, could also be somewhat selfish. Though this is extremely understandable. It's human nature. They don't want him to do it because they love him and know that it will cause them enormous pain. The trip ends, and when they return, they realize that something's not right. The girl wants to go home, but Will's mother catches up with her and asks her what happened. The girl replies, "You don't need to pay me. I didn't succeed." Louisa leaves, and the mother breaks down in tears. When she gets home, she sees her sister, who's hoping for good news, but the girl has no words to explain how she feels. The day has come for Will to go to Switzerland, but Louisa is in her room lamenting. Her father tells her that often, you can't make people change. Louisa asks him, then what can you do? Her father replies, you love them. These words motivate the girl to call Will's parents and travel to the house where the young man is going to end his life. She arrives, gets out of the truck, and a woman lets her in. In the background, she sees Will lying with his parents. They greet her and leave them alone. Louisa lies down on his chest because she can't look him in the eyes. She knows it's the last time she'll see him. There will be no more laughter, no more conversations, no more kisses. There will be no future. However, she will always carry him in her heart. She didn't change his mind, but they gave each other the days they dreamed of. Finally, Will passes on. Weeks later, we see Louisa reading a letter that Will left her. He tells her that he left her a large sum of money, not enough to live on for the rest of her life, but enough to buy her freedom. He tells her, knowing that you have possibilities is a luxury, and thinking that I gave them to you gives me peace of mind. Don't think about me too much, and live your life. The film is called Me Before You because of the radical transformation Louisa underwent after meeting Will. She grew as a person, learned a lot about life, and above all, her life changed completely for the better. Their time together was short and fleeting, but the mark Will left on her will last forever. These people leave a mark on you and a mark on your broken heart, but they don't leave. They just transform, going from being with you to being in you. Love is the most beautiful thing in this life, even if it sometimes costs a few wounds. Thanks for staying until the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it. And you and I'll see you in the next one.